Welcome to a very special What's Trending live Google Plus Hangout. Guy Adams, journalist at The Independent in the UK, made news this week during the 2012 Olympic Games for calling out NBC on his Twitter account. It was then suspended, went back up today. Guy,
hi.
Let's start with you to hear your story.
It's been surreal, actually. I was just going about my normal day job, which is writing stuff for The Independent, my newspaper, and then at about 10 o'clock yesterday morning, I'd been wondering for about 24 hours why I'd been banned from Twitter, and at about 10 o'clock yesterday morning, I discovered why, and within about 2 hours, my life was turned upside down, and my telephone has barely stopped ringing since. But it's been an extraordinary story, and really, all sorts of, it really brought home to me as a journalist, first of all, how much I rely on Twitter these days to do my job. And secondly, raised, I think, some quite interesting questions about, Twitter and its relationship with its commercial partners and how this will affect the way the site can be used going forward.
We have Jeff Jarvis here, and I want to bring in Matthew Keys as well, who also have questions for you and have been definitely involved in this story as it's unfolded. Jeff?
Well, Matthew, I'm sure, thanks for having us here. It's great to be here with Matthew, and I'm honored to be with the now very famous and resurrected tweeter, Guy. I think you're absolutely right. It brought up a lot of really important questions, which AMAC did start to answer in his post. I want to ask you about that in a second. But I think that it's a discussion that's barely begun about the responsibility of a platform and what we should expect of it. And we in journalism understand the often violated rules of church versus state, but I think technology companies need this as well so that we can trust them. So Guy, you got a response from the department at Twitter, and you tweeted about that. Then along came AMAC's blog post. I'd like to see what you think of that and whether you think the discussion is headed in the right path now.
I think his blog post actually represents at least a desire to take things forward in the right direction. When my Twitter account was reinstated, I was told that it had been reinstated simply because NBC had dropped their complaint against me. I thought that was a bit of a cop-out. I don't think I should have been suspended in the first place. I don't see how I broke any of Twitter's rules. I think Twitter ignored its own rules, and I think the reason they ignored its own rules was probably because they were in bed with a commercial partner. Now, I think I'm right in saying that AMAC's blog entry does discuss some of the backroom dealings that went on between Twitter and NBC in this whole affair. What it still insists, I think, is that my original tweet represented a breach of Twitter's rules, and I still don't think it did.
Looking back on what happened and knowing the outcome, put yourself back on Friday or Saturday, would you have done anything differently?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I strongly believe that people who run businesses ought to be held responsible for what those businesses do, and by that I mean that they ought to not ignore their customers. Now, NBC has clearly ignored the viewing public of America throughout, and what the viewing public wants throughout its coverage of the Olympics. Its decision to screen the opening ceremony was a disgrace. If the president of NBC Olympics does not want to hear from the viewers who are rightly outraged about what he's done, I don't think he's in the right job.
A lot of people say, Guy, that Twitter might have taken you off because of this privacy policy. You did put out Gary Zankel's email.
Right.
Do you regret doing that, and what do you say in response to that?
Not at all. I mean, first of all, it was his work email. It was easy for anyone to find if they had his name and use of Google. It was not written in a private format. It was written first name dot surname at company.com was essentially the format it was written in. And above all, it's a corporate email address. It's a work account. And as any, if I were to, I don't know, use my work email to send, let's say, a hideously racist joke to some friends, my work would rightly fire me. It's a work account, and when I'm using it, I represent my company. So I don't think I invaded this guy's privacy at all. And he might not like to hear from people who don't like his network's coverage, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't hear from them.
Interestingly, Jim Bell, the producer of NBC Olympics, has been on Twitter and has responded to some stuff. Have you gotten any response from anyone at NBC in all of your dealings in all of this?
No. In fact, I haven't had any calls, and aside from very, very formal emails, I haven't had any personal interaction with Twitter. Another interesting, a point which I've made a little bit in the past 24 hours. If by publishing this email address I'd caused a serious nuisance to NBC, if they'd have picked up the phone and called me and said, "Look, old boy, do you mind deleting that tweet? For various reasons, it's a bit of a pain," I'd probably have deleted it.
What did your employer think about all of this? How have they reacted?
It was quite interesting, actually. When the story first broke yesterday morning, both my employer and I was, slightly caught on the hoof, and I had a good chat with my editor, and I said, "Look," and he agreed that, "Look, I need to sort of have a bit of a think about this story. I need to have a bit of a think about the tweet I've sent, and whether it was wrong to send it, and how this is going to play out. So let's take a deep breath and not say anything for a couple of hours and see what happens." After a couple of hours, my newspaper and I had another good chat, and we said, "Look, we've thought through every single angle of this story and every possible implication of it. We still think we're totally in the right. We think they're totally in the wrong. We think NBC are behaving like idiots. We think Twitter are behaving in a manner which compromises their entire business model. And we think we should actually sort of fairly vigorously pursue the story." So my employer has been pretty supportive on that front.
Has it made you rethink using Twitter as a communication tool?
Yeah, I carry an iPhone in my pocket, and there are occasions during the course of most weeks when I've had a few too many drinks, and I might possibly think something ill-advised, and who knows? Maybe we should all be a little more careful about oversharing.
We actually have a question from someone on Facebook, Ian Hins, who asks, how did you feel that when your account was suspended, and would you do it again knowing now what would have happened?
If I was sitting here on Friday afternoon, again, still unable to watch a major news event because of the greedy behaviour of NBC executives, I would definitely still tweet this guy's email address. In future, would I tweet someone's email address? Not without having a good think about it, but that's not to say I wouldn't.
When we were speaking on the phone yesterday, I asked you if you covered NBC, if that was your beat, if media was your beat. And the response was, look, when I tweeted, it was as a person who was a spectator watching the Olympics, and I was frustrated that I couldn't watch the Olympics. I wasn't tweeting as a journalist. And that debate has been brought up a couple of times, if you can act in the capacity as a journalist at some times,
sure,
and as an individual at others, or even both. I'd like you to kind of expand your thoughts on that, if you could.
Sure, and it is a grey area. I know plenty of journalists who, for example, have a Twitter account that they use for their personal use, and a Twitter account they use for their work. The work one's normally extremely dull. The personal one's normally pretty fatuous, and both of them end up being sort of slightly boring. I kind of take the view that you can't separate a person from in journalism. You can't separate a person from the work they produce, and you should not expect journalists to produce completely unbiased copy all the time.